My father never actually slapped or punched me, my brother, or my mother. He didn't need to. He damaged us in other ways. After she accidentally got toxic paint into her eye while repairing a fence, instead of tending to her injury or offering her care for her pain, he screamed, "You stupid, stupid woman." This became his mantra. When we forgot to shut the door, turn off the lights, put the things back in the freezer with the labels facing forwards, or God forbid, put the butter back on the wrong shelf inside the fridge, he'd react with, "What is wrong with you? Are you an idiot? How many times do I have to tell you?" Dinner times were hell. Eat every morsel on your plate or you'll be having it for breakfast. If you don't get your elbows off the table, I'll be tying them to the chair. You'll stay here all night if you don't eat your food. Then there were the nights, lying awake in bed, unable to sleep due to the noises from the kitchen beneath. The sound of raised voices drifting up through the rickety floorboards of our 600-year-old cottage. But mostly it's the feeling he gifted me that still lives on. The physical sensation of my body constricting in fear when I heard the sound of his tires crunching on gravel as his car pulled into the drive. The bracing, the shrinking, the shutting down, becoming silent so as not to disturb the peace. The fantasies of running away or being sent to boarding school. Using my sixth sense to scan the space for his presence, avoiding him, becoming small, invisible even, to stay safe and survive his acts of terrorism. He really embraced the concept of it's my way or the highway. I'll give him that. They say, sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Oh, if only that were true. After watching my mother sobbing on the floor, incapable of standing up to his torrent of verbal abuse, I clearly remember making the decision at 7 years old, I won't be a weak woman. I will not cry anymore. And I didn't, until the day she died. Despite his affairs and authoritarianism, thankfully, he came and called me into the old barn adjoining our house one day, and asking me to sit on his knee, which I reluctantly did, announced, "Daddy is going to be moving out for a while." My response was, and I'm going to try a little Irish here, "Thank feck for that." Those were the words that ran through my 9-year-old mind as sweet relief flooded my veins. The idea of relaxation touching my bones for the first time. Yet his departure was not the end. It was just the beginning. My boundaries collapsed, my voice silenced, my self-esteem crushed. I was a perpetrator's dream. Bullied by the other kids at school, raped by my mother's boyfriend when I was 9, drugged and raped again by my 18-year-old boyfriend at 14, bullied by bosses in my career. Discombobulated, to say the least, I graduated with a first-class honors in the art of people-pleasing, but my school grades suffered. Substance abuse helped me numb the pain, the grief, and the shame. Anxiety circled in my atmosphere. Disassociating became my driver. Staying small, my game. Sadly, I am not alone. In their global report on violence prevention, the World Health Organization reports that 25% of children experience this kind of maltreatment in homes worldwide, with 1 out of every 5 girls and 1 in every 13 boys also experiencing sexual abuse. In studies by the United Nations, they find that 35% of adult women experience physical or sexual violence with an intimate partner. Yet in some national studies, it reaches as much as 70%. While this problem is massive, I believe we have an even bigger one. What we're failing to understand is the long-term impact that trauma has on our bodies, our well-being, relationships, our ability to make healthy choices or exit the pain-trauma vortex so that we can claim our birthright to embodied peace and pleasure. Let's see if I can do something here. Okay. So let's take a peek inside our bodies. I use the term trauma here in its truest sense. In the somatic therapy world, we define trauma as a real or perceived threat that was both overwhelming to the body's autonomic nervous system and a situation from which we feel like we were unable to escape. I'm going to repeat that. A real or perceived threat that was both overwhelming to the body's autonomic nervous system and a situation from which we feel like we were unable to escape, meaning we had no choice. And it's important to note that this is not a gender thing. Every body is impacted. For many, when the perceived or real threat has left or passed, the body will naturally and automatically return to homeostasis, and the benefits of the nervous system's parasympathetic response will be gained. That means shifting into the area at the bottom, social engagement, where we can experience love, peace, groundedness, happiness, joy, and perhaps most importantly, a sense of safety. Take note of the blue-orange below, the blue arrow. However, this is not always the case. Where frequent abuse, racism, gender discrimination, or violence occurs, particularly in our family dynamics, where we're too small, physically or psychologically unable to escape the threat, by fighting back or fleeing the situation, the nervous system subsequently becomes overwhelmed and tips into the freeze state, or what is known as tonic immobility. It's also called thanatosis in the animal world. This is our ability to fake death in order to evade a predator or any other unwelcome intrusion. This incredible, innate survival strategy does just that. It helps us survive situations where it feels like we're going to die, overwhelmed by a perpetrator who is causing us severe pain. Yet, if we survive, the nervous system's natural response is often disrupted, causing us to remain stuck in this freeze response, leading to feeling hopeless, helpless, locked in, dissociated, powerless, paralyzed, and numb. This is the state that our perpetrators can count on. The paralysis that arises during the act of abuse continues, quickly evolving into silence, affecting our relational ability, physical health, capacity to assert boundaries, speak up, leave situations that are unhealthy, or ever feel safe again inside our bodies. Caught in this perpetual state of freeze, the embedded shame at not having been able to escape, together with the fear of others' judgment that we believe will endure for our apparent inability to get away, results in a deep sense of disconnection from self and others, and thus the victim is born. For others, the body's response to threat results in the nervous system becoming caught endlessly in the fight-flight response, the yellowy area here. A permanent state of hyperarousal where reactivity, anger, irritation, rage are the norm, giving birth to the aggressive perpetrator. And so the perpetrator-victim dynamic subsequently plays out, not only in our homes, but in our bodies, preventing us from accessing the safety, the peace, the pleasure that we all deserve and desire. This is really the bigger problem we face. The impact of violence and abuse goes on long after we found the courage to leave or freedom has been offered. Boys and girls who are victims become the men and women who continue the patterns seeded by their parents, acting out in adulthood and beyond, either as the victim or the perpetrator, locked in by their nervous system to these irrational behaviors. It appears that there's no way out. Yet, as Peter Levine, the founding father of somatic experiencing and the author of New York Times bestseller, Awaken the Tiger Within, notes, trauma is a fact of life. It does not, however, have to be a life sentence. When trauma remains unresolved in the body, it loses the innate ability to pulsate, becoming constricted, painful, unable to experience peace, pleasure, or new possibility. Without somatic-based programs that provide the opportunity for embodiment, that give our bodies the capacity to actually have a different outcome, to discover choice where we had none, to thaw our bodies from this deep freeze, to access the rage, the panic, the terror, to fully process the shame, grief, and pain, this cycle will continue. Thankfully, I'm happy to say that my journey took me to trauma release exercises, somatic experiencing, Koya, and trauma-informed yoga. And for me, the symptoms of PTSD were healed. The atmosphere of anxiety resolved, dissociating dissolved into actually feeling, staying small turned into standing tall. And now I'm so blessed to share this work with others, with men and women all around the world, offering trainings, teachings, sessions, and I'm deeply grateful to my teachers, Dr. David Bocelli, Sharon Porter, Peter Levine, Ray Castellino, and many, many more. It's the work we are all here for, to transform, to transmute the pain into presence, to heal the hurt so happiness can prevail. We need programs desperately that help people release trauma on both a physiological and a mental level, everywhere, for everybody. In our schools, domestic violence shelters, men's groups, boardrooms, doctors' surgeries, hospitals, police stations. If we are truly to rise to a new level of consciousness, where as humans we can actually live the experience of heaven on earth, so our bodies, our nervous systems can consistently live in a state of social engagement to claim our birthright of joy, happiness, and instead of just survive, actually thrive, to experience true freedom, love, peace, pleasure, and most importantly, safety. Because if you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on the people who didn't cut you. So healing your hurt, healing our collective hurt, is the greatest act of sacred activism and contribution that we can ever do. Thank you.